that today.
I know you can. If anybody can, you can.
So we do a little centering. We just take this opportunity to go within. To know and to know that we know. We steal away to that secret place where we know that there's just the one. Regardless of all illusions, regardless of all appearances, there's only one life. There's only one power. There's just one earth. There's just one people. It's just one. All of the continents are connected. They're connected by the same earth. Just some parts of the earth are underwater, but it's all connected. There are no islands anywhere. In this moment right now, we're knowing that we all come from the same source. We breathe the same air. We literally have within ourselves the molecules and the DNA of everything that has ever been alive. We come here to honor that oneness. We come here to be. We come here to support expansion and growth and evolution of this oneness. That's why we come. As the psalmist said, create in us a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within us. Anything and everything, if we dare to close off, center off of what we know, we now cast it into the vast sea of no thingness from which it has come. We are simply for our own purpose. We are dedicated. We are recommitted. We are here for such a time as we give thanks for the revelations, the healings, the insights. We just get out of the way and allow it to be. And so it is. And so it is. Amen. Well, thank you for those comments, Barbara. I had intended to continue more down the economic road that we were going, and I do want to wrap some of that up, but I'm with you. Syria and the fleet to North Korea, that's got my attention right now in a big, major sort of way. Of course, it's not unrelated at all to the economic issues, but and there's some things that I took a moment to dig out that I wanted to present today to give you a chance to do some of your own research. And Nate, I didn't have a chance to send this to you, but I'm going to send it to you now.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that it'll make you happy, it'll just make you less confused. There won't be any ambiguities about what's going on and why. So what I am sending Nate now is information about a group called the New American Century. And here's one document.
Do you want it on the screen now?
Not this second, a little bit later, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you the link now. Okay. And we can put it up. And keeps the flow to the wrong route in here. So what this is that I'm sending Nate, there's a conservative think tank called the New American Century. And they started 20 years ago. And they have been working very, 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 very diligently over these past couple of decades. And I will read to you their statement of principles when they got started in June 3rd of 1997. And there are a number of familiar people in it, like Dick Cheney and Jeb Bush and Dan Quayle and Donald Rumsfeld and Paul Wolfowitz and Steve Forbes and Louis Libby and a few names that you probably heard through the years. They came up with the report in September of 2000. And it's a chunky little report. It's 90 pages. So I'm sending you just the link. And you can peruse it yourself. But what is so chilling in it is that it lays out the strategy for how America is to be the dominant and sole force on the planet. And before 9/11, it called for the assassination of Saddam Hussein. And it said how we needed to prove our might, that we needed to be on two fronts simultaneously. How we needed to be in the Middle East and battling North Korea simultaneously, like 20 years ago. And the specifics. Yeah, the specificity with which it lays out these things. I think it's important because we're looking at Trump like it's Trump. It's not Trump. Trump is just, he's almost like a puppet. He's like a caricature now in a very long strategic something. And this idea that all of this is random, it's not random. It's not random at all. The only difference now is that the conservatives are in control. And that's what this stuff speaks of, is the conservatives being in control. Let me listen this to you real quick. And I'm sending this to your internet email. Okay. So how this kind of relates back to the economic stuff that I was starting to talk about. Let me see if I can find this other document. Actually, this has the URL on it. Why don't you see if you can pull up this one too? URL up the top.
This one at the top?
Yeah.
You want me to get it on the screen now?
I want you to try to find it so you can get it on the screen when you need to. Thank you. So everybody just take a breath. Let's just take a nice breath. And can we move that camera a little bit closer over here? So I'm not looking so, well, maybe I need to come over here. More action. Take a breath. I think we need to take just a couple of more breaths here. Shake it off a little bit. You know, when we first, right after the election, I was mentioning the fact that we kept talking about it as sort of like red versus blue, but that was really the wrong way to look at this. That the Republican Party, as we know it, did not win the election. That the Republican Party that we know got completely disenfranchised. Their candidates were trumped. Not trumped, but trampled. In the, yeah, they were trampled. And what we had was a revolution. What we had was a riot. I'll call it a riot. And with that riot, an extreme right wing was able to get into control. They ran the coattails of the riot, so to speak. We all need to get off of Donald Trump. Okay? Donald Trump is not calling the shots. He is on his 18th golf trip in 11 weeks.
Get rid of him.
He is not running the show. 18 golf trips.
3 hours each.
Yeah, I can't, and that's just the golf part. You know, I can't even imagine how much Secret Service bucks were paying for his wife to live someplace else and for him to live in Trump Tower and you know, everybody going everywhere that they're going all the time, but he's not at the White House running everything. I'm not saying that you've got to emotionally have all the warm and fuzzies, but what I am saying is that we got to get off of it. Mm-hmm. And we really have to get off of demonization of people. We're talking about consciousness. We're talking about ideas. We talk about thoughts. And as long as there's someone out there to emulate it, as long as there's someone out there to what's the word I'm looking for? To perpetuate it, then it's going to show up. It's not about the people. It's not about that. It's like if you have the concept of the scapegoat. That's not anybody in particular. That's just whoever it happens to be in the moment. If you have a concept of the black sheep in the family, that's a construct. Okay? If you try to fight the people or the thing that this is against, if you can't find that one, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
that's probably down by now.
It's down, yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised the other one is still up because it was down for a long time. I'll just read it. That what we have to be careful of is that we don't get so fixated on the messenger that we forget that the message is what we're up against. Mm-hmm. And then we can think that if we get rid of the messenger, we can get rid of the message. You know, Friday is Good Friday, and it's symbolic of this whole thing. You can kill the messenger, but you can't kill the message. That's sort of good news and bad news. But if we realize that, then things like war on terrorism or war on specific people like that, we will realize how faulty it is. Because terrorists aren't a specific group of people. They're not a specific group of people. it's a concept that is reactive. And interestingly enough, this notion of, well, let's just keep them guessing, that we're hearing out of the mouth of the President of the United States, that's a terrorist tactic itself.
Amen.
Not to put forth a clear ideology, not to give your so-called opponents even a chance to comply or to know what it is that you want or what you're looking for, not to have a chance to negotiate or to work it out, but just, I'm going to keep you guessing when I strike again. You become what you don't forgive. Let's think it from a spiritual standpoint. You become what you don't forgive. When you're standing in such a place of self-righteousness all the time, you wind up doing the very things that you accuse other people of doing. Mm-hmm. The one who is most rigid accuses everybody else of being rigid. The one who's the most unforgiving is the one who sees that in everybody else. It's a little thing called projection. When you can't see it in yourself, and then you project it out. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, with our notion of our economic system that we were talking about, and I'm just going to do a quick little recap. So it puts this militarism into context. We said that capitalism rose out of particular certain set of circumstances. It rose out of Western Europe. It rose out of the notion of the right of the individual. No monarchy, a democracy. That the people should be able to do whatever it is that they want to do in terms of governing themselves. No pope, no religious leader or priests or bishops or whatever, cardinals, who are in between us and God. We should be able to have a direct connection. We shouldn't have to petition.
No middleman.
No middleman. Exactly. An economic system that says no feudal lords. We don't need, because at that time all of Europe was chopped up into little pies, little slices, and they were already taken by all of the lords, and everybody else basically worked for a fiefdom. And you weren't allowed to have the fruits of your own labor. Whatever it is that you did belonged and was taxed by whatever that was, who was the kingdom that you were, the district, so to speak, that you were under. And on and on. And we started to have the technological revolutions that started to enable this. So the industrial revolution then allowed for replication of things, duplication of things, the manufacturing of things, that you didn't have to have just an agrarian society anymore. People were able to make stuff. And it also needed supplies and it needed input. It needed resources. So we talked about how Western Europe sent its folks all over the planet. I mean, literally all over the planet. There's barely a continent in which Western Europe did not go out to and colonize. I'm talking like itty bitty little countries, itty little, and they're the ones that were on the ocean. They had to have access to the ocean to do that. So you didn't find the Eastern European countries and the ones that were landlocked. These were the Western countries. This was Spain and France and Portugal and the Dutch and the English, and the French, the ones that had access. And they went all over the Americas. They went over Africa, they went to India. I mean, they went like all over the place. And to them, because of their worldview, and this worldview, just breathe on this, okay? I'm not saying there's any truth in it, but it becomes part of that paradigm, this worldview that God was in their image, and that they were in the image of God, and that it was their job, basically, to go around and like save the rest of the world. It was their job to go around and civilize, because if you weren't in these, you know, European nations, what, you just weren't civilized. You were savage. You were, you know, you were beast. You were lowly. If you were some kind of indigenous, that your gods, your religions, your pagan, anything that was like earth-based or whatever, astrological, you know, all of that was like subservient. And with this God in their own image came this notion of this hierarchy within the human race. And they literally created the construct of race. The construct of race did not exist before this rise of capitalism. The construct of race was a justification for the transatlantic slave trade, but it did not exist. That's not to say that prejudice did not exist, but what you had before was the idea of tribes and nationalities, but not the concept of race. That was new. And with this concept of race, it created this notion of the purity, where it put white at the top and black at the bottom. This all relates to the bombing, trust me. White at the top and black at the bottom. Okay. And the pure is the point. It's like, why is Obama black? Why is Tiger Woods black? Yeah, but he's genetically speaking just as much white as he is black. So how did he get to be an African American? How did he get to be black when his mother's white? And I use Tiger Woods as an example because his mother's Thai. Okay, so you have a man who's half black, half Thai. You have a man who's half white, half black, but they're both black. Why? It is because this construct of race, where it puts it at these two extremes, where once black touches anything, it's black. Black and Chinese, black and anything is black. So what we call black is really this diaspora of interracial and multi-ethnic things all over the world that just has some portion of it being African descent. But it's a hodgepodge, you know. In America, in North America, it's this hodgepodge between Native American, white, and black. You know, you can look at African Americans, we look different. You know, we don't look like we're straight here from Africa because we are a mixed blood. However, the way that the construct of white is set up is that white gets to disassociate itself from its own blood. White gets to disassociate itself from any intermingling, any mongrelization, quote unquote. And it was particularly this way in the English colonies. The Spanish weren't as rigid. The Spanish allowed intermarriage between, say, the Spaniards and the natives. And they actually recognized the mixed breed as mestizos. Even in places like South Africa, where the Dutch were, that there's this notion of the colors, like as a race, like these sort of like intermingled. But the English version, in particular in America, was like really, 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 really rigid. So that even if it was your own biological child, you didn't have to own that child anymore. That child was not considered related to you. Just breathe that in for a moment. And I'm bringing that up to say that the notion, and I've said this repeatedly, the notion of racism has morphed itself into nationalism. We don't talk about white supremacy anymore, but we do our nationalistic supremacy the same way that we did the racial supremacy. Okay? That the way that we're treating our foreign policy, and I'll connect it with economics, but the way that we're treating our foreign policy is this kind of isolationist mentality. Like there's some kind of pure America, and we can keep everybody out of America. Like we can keep everybody out of our gene pool. Whether we have to build walls, whether we have to renege the visas or whatever. But simultaneously, just like with the race issue, we have the right to go everywhere else and do whatever we want to do to the other races. We have a chance to keep our race pure, but we can export other people, we can enslave other people, we can take their land, we can take their resources, we can do whatever we want to do, while we make certain that nobody can do that to us.
Because we are like God.
Yes.
God is in our image,
yes,
not yours.
Yes. Not only that, but we are infallible like God. We are not wrong. We make no mistakes. We are always good. We're always on the right side. And of course we can't apologize because there's nothing to apologize for. And if we were, that would be some semblance of weak. And God can't be weak.
Yeah. There was a movie that was just out within the last couple of months about Japan and these missionaries that came into Japan to convert everybody. It was so eye-opening. It showed it exactly the way it was, the way they imprisoned people, and exactly. It was so good and so hard to watch.
Yes.
It was so revolting
Yes.
to watch it. I'm surprised they even could make the movie.
Well,
I mean, because I didn't know who else besides us, people that had been thinking about this, would go see it.
well, I don't mean to sound cold when I say this, so just take a deep breath when I say this, okay? It's only news to white America.
Exactly. That's what I know.
It's only news to white America. White America is the only group that is like in denial and blind about this history, the exploitation, the militarism, all of it's like everybody else not only knows it, but lives under the weight of it. So when people around the world hear white America say they don't see color, or they don't, all the things that they don't see, it just makes everybody want to pull out their hair. It's like, are you kidding me? What has been happening and what is going on there? So you just got to breathe that in for a moment. We have been using, just like our European ancestors, we have been using our military might to protect our economic interests around the world. 9/11, there were 3 targets. We only talk about one. There were 3. Do you know what the 3 targets were in 9/11? What were the 3 targets? The White House, the Pentagon, which did get hit. At least 200 people died in the Pentagon. You never, ever, ever, ever hear anybody say that our Pentagon was hit. Why? Why don't you ever hear that?
Because we are the mightiest.
It would be weak.
Our military is the mightiest in the world.
Exactly. You wouldn't want to show that weakness. Were those 200 lives any less? Then no. But that would show weakness. And it would also show a motive. See? We keep wanting to make 9/11 just this sort of rant, like they picked the United States out the telephone book. The Pentagon, the White House, and the World Trade Center. The military, the White House, and the World Trade Center. 9/11, our emergency number, 911, United Planes, American planes. Wake up, smell the coffee, connect the dots. We are still not connecting the dots.
What does this have to do with Syria? I mean, the attack on those babies.
It's all from the same thing.
And why?
It's all from the same thing. We have been trying, we basically try to control the globe. We use 9/11 as an excuse to overtake Iraq. Iraq didn't have anything to do with 9/11. Did we apologize? No. We built the biggest embassy that the US has. It's not a base. It's a 5,000-acre embassy. I mean, it's an embassy with 5,000 people. Yes. Biggest. So strategically, we now have this base. We have a military presence in over 120 countries in the world. I don't know if I can name 120 countries.
This room couldn't name 120.
Okay, but listen to what I'm saying. They are there protecting all of our interests. This sucker's over oil.
Just as Cheney said right after 9/11.
This sucker
We can
is,
take the oil.
this sucker is over oil. When we were going into more energy efficient stuff and away from the oil, all this stuff became less and less important. But this administration is going back old school. This administration wants to go back fossil fuels. This administration wants to go back to the old energy forces. This administration is trying to take over the oil in the Middle East.
Did they forget?
And we're running up against a brick wall of equal nationalism. Because we have had this history for decades now of going into regions and destabilizing them. Going into regions. You know, we destabilized Iraq decades ago. We knew they had weapons of mass destruction because we gave it to them. We gave Saddam Hussein the chemical warfare to fight the Ayatollah Khomeini against Iran. We gave it to him. And then we turn around and make him the bad guy. You know, Ho Chi Minh fought with us in World War II against the Japanese. And then we turned around and made him the bad guy in Vietnam. We have this history, sort of like time and time again, of whatever it is that's going to be to our like economic controlling interests, getting in there and manipulating, and the world is tired. Okay?
Yes.
The world is tired of this. And they're not going to stand for it. This thing that we keep telling ourselves that we're good and we're right and we're just and it's all okay. No, it's not. Yeah.
There's an abundance of oil in Mexico. Why haven't we put our claws into them?
Well, I think we could certainly do more. It's nowhere near the same amount of oil that is in the Middle East. We're doing, and I personally, I don't know why we're not. I think that's a good question. I've been saying all along, instead of putting billions and billions of dollars to build a wall, why don't you invest it in Mexico? If we put that much money into the Mexican economy and really made it strong, one, they wouldn't be running over here, and two, we'd have a stronger economic ally, and we wouldn't have ISIS knocking at our southern door in a company that we impoverish. You know, it'd make a whole lot of sense to me, but you know, we're building the pipeline again, you know, to Alaska. Well, if there's oil anywhere, I'm sure we'll try to go, you know, more after it. But this is strategic control. This is strategic control, and it's military might, and it's racist. You know, we can call it whatever we want to call it, but it's racist. And you know, this doing a holy war on Islam, it's a losing battle. It's a losing battle because then it's endless war. Because it's not war about anything in particular.
Which is an economic win for certain corporations.
Yes, say that again, louder.
Continuous war is an economic gain for certain corporations. The rich get richer.
Yes. The way that the U.S. is set up, we are a war economy. We are a war economy. 45 cents on every dollar spent on military expenditures around the world is spent by us. So war counts as a plus. Just like the prisons count as a plus. When they talk about we need to spend more on the military and spend more on the military, these are big military contractors. This is big business. This is big, big business. And then those are our weapons that keep getting recycled out on the streets in the hands of all the terrorists. That's where they're getting all of these automatic weapons that everybody, those are our weapons. that we just keep upgrading and upgrading and upgrading and upgrading. And at some point, we've got to call a big stop here, a big halt, and say, no, no, no. This is not the way to do it. Ever since the Depression, when we get in an economic slump, we go into a war mentality to boost up the economy.
Not just we, but Republicans.
Well, it's conservative think.
It's conservative thinking.
It's really conservative think. So let's see what some of our chat folks are saying in there.
Okay, so
It's Republican war mentality.
yeah. On the chat, Rafe said, about 9/11, economic was New York, military was the Pentagon, leadership was the White House.
Mm-hmm.
And about 120, we have a presence in 120 countries. He
Mhm.
said not one has a presence here.
It'll be a cold day in hell.
Yeah.
Like I said, it will be a cold day in hell before there is a military presence on U.S. soil. And this is so, it's just spiritually fallacious. I don't even know what else to say. That
It's hypocritical.
pendulum swings both ways. You can't, you just can't act like that. You can't act like that in the world. You can't act like that in your home. You can't act like that anywhere where you think you can be in everybody else's business and nobody be up in yours. It's just not that, karma just doesn't work that way. It just does not work that way.
Not for very long.
Not for very long. No, not for very long.
Barbara says, look at Noriega too.
Oh yeah.
Catherine Nance said yes. And then being white in America is like having drunk the Kool-Aid.
Yes, it is like having drunk the Kool-Aid. Is anybody not familiar with the Kool-Aid references? Does anybody need to know what it is?
I do. What is that?
About 30, maybe 40 years ago. Actually, maybe longer than that, but I think maybe 45 years ago.
No, it's less than that. 35. Because I was in California and I've been here 40 years.
No, well, I remember in the early 80s, maybe 30. No, what is that? Maybe 35. Yeah. So there was a group of Pentecostals. Ironically enough, the denomination that I grew up in,
Yeah.
that went following a white leader named James Jones. And apparently he was a really, really charismatic guy who just really got off in his own power. And they became the last cult and went into this area in Guyana called Jonestown. And nobody could get out. And it was really a very highly publicized situation that was going on there. And when the feds were closing in on them, there were pharmacists there actually who made a concoction for the residents of Jonestown to drink. And they referred to it as Kool-Aid, to drink, so they could die in their peaceful in their utopia rather than to let the light of truth come in and to have their little reality and world destroyed. And when you hear people say they drank the Kool-Aid, they are referring, in fact, to that. Yeah, and just as an aside, it was really chilling one day. I had a landlady at a place that I lived in Los Angeles who confessed that her son was the pharmacist. That she lost her whole family. over there. Yeah, it was just chilling. I was in this big apartment complex that was full of elderly Eastern European refugees. And she was Jewish herself, but she was saying that it was a little closer to her. We were talking once about losing family, that she lost her family in Guyana, her grandkids and all the rest of that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yes, it was like drinking the Kool-Aid.
Rafe also says apparently there are now secret prisons for gays in Russia. Shares something.
Oh yeah.
And Barbara said, "Thank God the air is not controlled by the conservatives."
Yes, Kaylee, and then I'm going to let
So
some
there was
people
a
in.
really interesting article in the New York Times, Rev, I sent you a link to it,
Yes.
written by a Southern woman. And her premise was if the Christians she knew in the South, she's Catholic, but she was talking about evangelical Christians, are some of the kindest people that she knows. And if there's ever like a tornado or a hurricane, whatever, the churches will go in. And the churches will come to help people and over and over again. And she said, but the anomaly is that these very generous Christian folks are voting for Trump. And how ironic that is, because when you really look at not only him as a person, because they're all about family values, if you look at him and his family values, they don't reach anything like what they're after. His policies don't reach anything like what they're after. And it's another case almost of this living in a bubble inside of a bubble. Because we're supposed to be such a Christian nation, but when you're talking about Syria and all the, no one would ever dare come here. One of the basics of Christianity is do unto others as you would have them. If an American stopped to think, if somebody did to America what we're doing to other people, just look at the golden rule and you go, oh my God, we are just so
hypocritical.
Part of the problem here, and it's kind of where we stand here theologically, just like there are multiple Americas, there are multiple Christians.
for sure.
And there are at least two brands. And it's often referred to as the pre or the post-Easter Jesus. The pre or the post-Easter Jesus. Like, which Jesus do you believe in? Do you believe in Jesus, the life of Jesus, and how he conducted his life? Or do you believe more in the theology that was built about him and around him after that became a religion? So what happens here is that the post-Easter Jesus are supremacists.
Theology.
No, but they are supremacists. And you are taught that. You are taught that not only are you better, but Jesus loves you more, and you're the only ones going to heaven. You're taught that. Am I lying?
No.
Spot
Oh, when I do that, that means swivel.
There was I heard this the other day. There was some preacher saying, and it was a Southern preacher, and he was saying something about pray for people or something. But he literally said, Christians. It doesn't apply to everyone, and it doesn't work for other people. And there was another, when I was in, I went back, I was in Missouri, and I was listening to a guy on the radio, and he was saying that Jesus hears your prayers, but only if you're saved and only if you're a Christian. He does not hear the prayers of non-believers. That was on the radio. Right in Missouri.
Wow.
I was just shaking my head.
Mhm.
Wow.
So no, that's exactly what it is, and it's you're right. It's that distinction of, do you emulate the life of Jesus and walk your talk,
Mhm.
or are you saying that's all you need to do?
Right.
Right. There's a disconnect between what you have to do on a daily basis, which is, oh, I'm saved, so I can do what I'm already
Right.
there. Right.
Right.
I've had Christians tell me that are saved that your good deeds do not get you into heaven.
Right.
And I don't know if I buy that. I believe the way you live your life is how you get there. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Well, yes. And along with that, they're supremacists and they are imperialists.
Yeah.
Because they believe that mandate is go tell it on the mountain, and that you are charged to convert. So here's where the slip thing is. So the belief is, and listen to how dangerous this is. You're right, Major, that the belief is not so much that you are judged by your deeds and how you conduct your life, but how many other people you can get to Jesus. You know how dangerous that is. Not what you do, but how much can you influence other people to join the church, become Christian, or whatever. So instead of you cleaning up your own act, instead of you becoming more kind and gentle and whatever, it's like you get a free pass if you spend all of your time trying to change everybody else. So you get on everybody else's sexuality. You know, you get on everybody else's, way that they're living their life and how they're doing it. You don't have to deal with your own. My book, Your Deepest Intent, speaks a lot of this. The letters in Your Deepest Intent, like really, really, drive this home. Yes.
Yeah, Rafe said, Jesus died for your sins so you don't have to be responsible anymore. All your discretions have been co-signed and forgiven in advance. Also, Marilyn said she cannot hear Major's comment.
Oh, okay.
They can almost never hear because we don't talk loudly enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Major, do you want to say it again? Can you say it a little louder? Yeah, why don't you screw
Yeah,
up?
that's good. If I can remember what I said. It's just, I'll try to summarize. It's just that this is another way of saying what I said, which is, this is what gives you license to go out and nullify another person's reality or their culture or who they are, because without the Jesus of post-Easter, nobody can get to heaven. And so it is your job, and it is incumbent on you to go out there and convert everyone. And and like I said, that's where it's a spiritual arrogance that a lot of people are locked into in this country, especially in the South, especially in the Bible Belt.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yes. Yeah. And in terms of foreign policy, how it plays itself out is this. Breathe. It's nothing personal. This is just the way that it is. The way that it plays itself out in foreign policy is that the Jews can do no wrong. Okay? Period. End of report. So this belief here with the Christians is that the Jews were God's chosen people. And one of these days, they'll wake up and smell the coffee and respect the fact that Jesus came. Like, there's that idea that one of these days they will sort of awaken and realize that they had the Messiah amongst them, there with the second coming. But that at any and all cost, you protect the Jews. I can remember the arguments that my mom and my dad used to have about this before he died, about 3 or 4 years ago. And my mom would just say, you know, you better not mess with Israel. You better not mess with Israel. You know, because God, God's coming back. God, this and that. You know, them's God's people. So in terms of like the allegiances here, Israel can do no wrong. Islam, on the other hand, and there's this thing, and I'm not trying to make it sound like it's way out there, but if we don't hear this, we won't quite get it. There is this notion of, quote unquote, the Antichrist. Okay? The Antichrist. And I'm not going to try to scare you with like all this Armageddon stuff or whatnot. But this notion that there really are going to be these huge world, global battles of sort of light against dark. And that it is the duty, it is the Christian duty to like fight these evil forces. That's the subcontext. When you hear people talking about, you know, fighting the Islamic terrorists and all the rest of that, that in their minds, it's not just attacking sort of like American values and apple pie, but that this is a holy war, and that these folks are evil. I hate to put it like that, but to ultra conservative Christians, Islam is evil.
That's right.
Islam is evil, and that they're not going to heaven. So there's this mentality that goes on here of what it means to do God's will, what it means to do the work of God. So when you have this idea that God is going to cast the gay people in hell forever, or God is going to cast these people in hell forever, God's going to do this or that, you know, forever, then it feels justified almost to go out and do that harm, because that's what God is going to do to them anyway. Okay. Now, just let me finish this thought, and I'm not trying to send this over the top. I just feel like if you don't connect these dots, you really can't see this picture. That in Scripture, they have this story of the flood, and that supposedly the whole world was overtaken with the water in this flood. It's like, I don't know. We find salt deposits on the top of the highest mountains that otherwise would be at sea level. It's like, I don't know. The earth has gone through so many different stages, you know, who knows? But there is this notion that the next time we go around, the earth is going to go by fire. The earth is going to go by. So really want you to catch this, what I'm saying about this idea of like the last days, and what an honor it is to live in the last days and to be the ones fighting the battle in the last days. Makes it really easy to say things like, well, global warming's really got nothing to do with us as humanity. You know, it says that it's gonna, like heat up and explode. That's prophecy. This is
Way down
This-
low.
this is woo-woo prophecy. I mean, really, it's like all of this stuff, this that Christ is gonna come again, and when Christ comes again, not everybody's gonna die, but the righteous are just gonna like lift up. This is the rapture thing. The righteous are just going to lift up. And folks are looking forward. That's what I'm saying. They're looking forward to this explosion, this combustion, this rapture day, this day of the separating of the good and the evil, and it's like all of the rest of that. And it's this kind of really, really ultra conservative thinking that's in control now. This is not typical Republican. This is not even typical Christian. This is a far right-wing extreme version of it, but has tapped into the sort of fundamental religious beliefs, the fear, that we're losing control, we're losing power, what's going to happen, the world's going to, hell in a handbag. We've got to rise up, not on our watch. This idea that we've got to attack, we've got to do all this stuff because God is holding us responsible for making sure that we hold up the bloodstained banner. I know this may sound crazy, and I apologize for how crazy it sounds, but there really is a rationale that's behind all of this, but it isn't, unless you're living in it, you don't know it. I don't know if I'd have known this if I didn't live in it. If I wasn't raised in it, I might not have known this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You're looking like, this is just the craziest thing I ever heard.
No, I'm starting to get it.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm starting to get it. That all these things that make sense don't make sense because of everything you're talking about. Because global warming, the environment, everything, this is the priority in thinking. And that's my eyes.
Good. How about some people online?
Catherine Mann said the other side of the coin to the jihadists is that the infidels are damned too, so it's okay to off them.
Yeah.
And Rafe says, and the way the law works, as long as the beliefs in the Antichrist and the battles described in Revelations are held so deeply by the collective consciousness, it cannot not manifest.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly, Kaylee.
So I'd just like to say that it's very easy for us to look at Islam and say that the terrorists are a small group who have an apocalyptic view, and why don't moderate Islamists stand up and take their religion back? It's exactly the same thing. Why don't we stand up and take our religion back? And I do understand, we've talked about this, but where's the voice of the Jesus religion? And I think that's our charge, to not just say, oh, those people over there control the government or control hunks of the country. Yes, they do. But what about the hundreds and hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands of pre-Easter Christians? I think either our belief isn't strong enough, and I don't actually consider myself. But anyway, the belief isn't strong enough. We're not vocal enough. We're too mild-mannered. We're too something. And it's easy for us to blame moderate people in Islam. But we don't look at moderate Christians and say the same thing. Does that make sense?
Of course it does.
Yes.
It's the distancing. It's the distancing that happens. There's a reclamation that we have to do.
Correct. But I'm not willing to say that's Christianity. They've taken it and they've named it Christianity. I'm just going to sit here and say, okay, go for it. They don't get to go for it.
Well, no.
Enough.
No, and this is what I'm saying is that I think it's similar across the board of a kind of not just religion, but politics as well, a kind of acquiescence.
Yes.
That says, whatever, that's bad, they're in control, I don't want to play this game anymore. So people have been dropping out. They've been dropping out of religion. They've been dropping out of politics. They've been dropping out of these things. And I think as of this last election, people are kind of go, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. We can't afford to drop out. We have to have a voice. We have to be engaged. We have to be involved. That we cannot afford to let this be the face of America. This is the face of America now, all over the world. And people standing up and going, no, this is not my face. This is not the face of America. I think we need, this can't be the face of Christianity. This can't be the face of capitalism. Quiet as cat. No, we have to be willing, but here's the trick. Here's the trick. Listen, we have to be willing to put our face with it, which is why we have to get rid of the demonization, which is why we have to get rid of the vilifying, which is why we need to be able to stand right next to the very things we've been trying to distance from and say, we are a part of it. We are part of this family. We're a part of it. Whatever that is. I am an American too. I'm not less American just because I don't believe this stuff. But we can't distance. Now's not the time to run to Canada. No, I'm serious. Now's not the time to run to Canada. It's like now is the time to put the stake down and say, oh, hell no. No. Not my America. Not my America. Not my church. Not my world, not my community, not my citizens. No, you do not get to ride shotgun. No.
And not my life.
And not my life. Yeah. And I'm saying it with a vision, not just an anti, but to say, no, we've got, I know the vision of my Jesus. This is why I don't back down from it, from the pulpit. I know it makes people crazy talking about Jesus and God, but you know what? We need to hear it.
Yes.
We need to know. We need to know. We need to get inspiration. We need to be inspired by something. We need to go back and reclaim and redeem something and not just run from it. To stand in it. Can I tell you what it has taken for me, an out lesbian, to be on a pulpit and have a church, and particularly to have bought a Pentecostal church? There are no words. If I can do it, anybody can do it. We can get over it. So we do not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Can I say something?
Nate's been trying.
Barbara said when they do it, we call them terrorists. When we do it, the USA do it, we call freedom fighting.
Yes.
Again, it all comes down to the paradigm of separation and supremacy. A new paradigm of oneness is trying to bust out.
Mm-hmm.
And Rafe said, I think the greatest and most deadly indoctrination that happens is the hopelessness and helplessness that comes from believing we as individuals have no power.
Right.
Yes. You know, and the round is out so that it all makes sense and why this worked in this last election and why it keeps going now is that in this helplessness that Rafe is talking about, staying on this victim, villain, hero triangle, there's always a savior. And we got presented a savior in this election. somebody took up that mantle of being the Savior, that there's a predisposition, and it's not personal. I would highly recommend that you read the book called Moral Politics. Moral Politics by George Lakoff, Lakoff, who does a brilliant job of kind of explaining how conservatives and liberals think. How one thinks more traditional, and one thinks, more, universal, and inclusive. And that notion of law and order, like there's somebody or something that's going to come in and fix it and save it and like make it right, is really, really important than the messiness of we're all just going to get in there and like figure it all out. It's like the perfect storm. The perfect storm came together. Yes. And we got to close out.
I'm Jewish. I'm gay, and I'm part black. And I was taught that Jesus was a rabbi, that he was not the son of God. He was the son of two people who got together and made a baby called Jesus. But he was a great teacher. This is what I was taught. Now, I'm not religious. I never have been. And I never quite bought that idea. And the first time I ever really wanted to get to know who Jesus was when you said, whatever Jesus is, that's what I am. That's what I heard you say. And the other thing that I heard you say that made me want to get to know this Jesus is when you said, and Jesus was a feminist. Well, my ears perked up on that. And I thought, wow, I really wish I knew this man. I really wish I knew this man. And I have a new, developing, emerging desire to get to know Jesus. And if he were here today, I know what he would say.
Mm-hmm.
He'd look around the world and he'd say, oy vey, what has happened here? That's what I wanted to say.
Well, that could be. And it was already happening in his day. It was already happening in his day. His whole area was under Roman rule. And when the Roman Empire picked up Christianity and then made that the religion of the entire Roman Empire, it was already set up. The globalization was already there, and it got exported there. So I'm going to send you a link. And this one little phrase here.
Backwards.
Is it backwards because of the camera?
Because of the camera.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that interesting? So what it says,
So hold it up in the mirror.
it says, at present, the United States faces no global rival. America's grand strategy should aim to preserve and extend this advantageous position as far into the future as possible. That's the grand underlying strategy for rebuilding America's defenses, the New World Century, and I will send you the links. Okay?
Oh, Ray said it was correct there. That when they view it, it's not backwards.
Oh, when they view it, it's not backwards. Okay,
Yeah.
well then,
It's the absentee. Yeah.
Put it up first.
okay.
It's the
Well,
projection.
sorry, I pulled it down from you. But you'll get the link. And as we end, I've been saying time and time again that our biggest problem is supremacy. Have I not been
Yes.
saying that over and over and over and over again? the othering, the separation, the lack of oneness. And we have to come back to it. One planet, one people, one power, one nation. And if you're not Christian, that's fine. But the so-called values of the nation was built upon so-called religious tolerance. And that being a fundamental right. And theoretically, a separation of church and state. Theoretically, yes. And we need to keep standing for that. Anybody can practice whatever religion that they want to practice. And that should be upheld, respected by the government and by its citizens.
Amen.
Yes. Is that Russ? You're going to say something, and then we'll close out.
There was a comment earlier about, thank God the Republicans don't control the air, but my dismantling, the Environmental Protection Agency.
Oh, yeah.
They're controlling the quality of the air. And the second thought was murder for profit. Anytime you drop a bomb, people are going to die. And to create wars, to drop bombs, to kill. I'm guessing we've killed millions of people. Easily. For profit. And it's, it's against the law here.
Yeah, well, we got to take it back in love.
That's right. Take it back in love.
Got to take it back in love. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
So, we're going to make a couple of changes in this format. We're actually going to take the next 2 weeks off in April. One of them I'm going to be out of town, and I need to step back from this for a moment. Get my head cleared. It's a lot. And then we're going to start up again in May, whatever that is. I think it's May the 3rd, Wednesdays. I'm going to start taking Monday as my day off. I really, really need Monday as my day off. So we'll make sure this is archived, make sure that you get the link. And I encourage you to go through the material. Stuff will just start to make sense. That's all I can say in terms of your own discussions, with other people, is you kind of get it, particularly just like the intros and the overall kind of philosophy, the thinking that goes behind it. You go, oh, well, that's it. And you know what to pray for. Pray for the healing. Pray for the oneness. Pray for the mutual respect. Pray for the understanding that there's only one life and only one power and only one presence and one planet, and that we all share it. Oh, that's what needs to be healed. Oh, okay, good. That's it. It's not a mystery anymore. Yeah. Yeah, all right. Yeah, and thank you everybody for joining. Any last minute comments anybody wants to make on Zoom? Is that Barbara?
Yes.
Peace time.
Oh, peace. Oh, peace. Okay. All right. Thank you for all of you who've been making donations to the PayPal. Thank you for that. I always want to give gratitude all the time. And let's sing, huh? We have a little theme song that we sing. It's really easy. It's I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission to live passionate and free. Be all I can be, passionate and free. Yeah. I give myself permission to be all I can be. I give myself permission, passionate and free. I give myself permission to be all I can be. Be all I can be. I give myself permission, passionate and free. Passionate and free. Woo. Let us take this consciousness and multiply it.
Thanks, Rev.